Hi there! This is a rewatch and recap of Twin Peaks. I'm rewatching the whole series at the minute to kill time whilst waiting for the new 2017 series, and also to watch the series on a deeper level than perhaps I have done before. And I'm also inviting comments from people so that I can understand and appreciate things that I maybe hadn't done before. So I am currently watching episode 10 of the entire series, which is episode 11 if you count the pilot, and episode 3 of season 2, which is called The Man Behind the Glass. I'm sorry, it's getting a bit confusing with the numbering of the episodes, but it's officially on the DVD it's called episode 10. The Man Behind the Glass was directed by Leslie Linka Glatter, who also directed Cooper's Dreams in season 1, and it was written by Robert Engels, who also wrote episode 4, The One-Armed Man, in season 1. So Ronette is clearly a very disturbed young woman. Given that this actress is actually going to appear in the 2017 series, and I assume she's playing Ronette, you do wonder whether this trauma, you know, how that would affect her for the rest of her life. I imagine that it would change you as a person, and clearly she is experiencing a very deep kind of emotional and psychological trauma here, as well as physical. So Cooper realizes that Bob has put the letter under Ronette's finger. He decides that this is the right moment to tell Harry and Albert about the giant. Having seen Fire Walk with Me, I think it's viable to assume that Albert understands that this unit under Gordon Cole. Okay, let me explain. I think that when Cooper is talking to Harry and Albert in this scene, when he's talking about having been visited by a giant, it seems as though both men are going to be, you know, they would be shocked by that. And obviously Harry is kind of, what, you were visited by a giant? And Albert comes back with what seems like a wisecrack, you know, any relation to the dwarf. However, having seen the prequel to Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, it is safe to assume, I think, that Albert understands that the unit that is investigating this case and Teresa Banks' case, under the blue rose symbol, he understands that, I think, that there are going to be agents like Agent Cooper who have some kind of psychic means to solve this thing. I think Jet Desmond had it as well, a little bit of psychic ability. If you watch his behaviour in the movie when he is drawn to the empty trailer park space in the same way Cooper is. So it's safe to assume that Albert knows that Cooper is going to be saying this kind of thing about giants and dwarves and whatnot. We meet Harold, and I think he's a very interesting character. I calls him a shut-in. I've never actually, I'm not familiar with that term. It's not something we say in the UK as far as I know, but I assume that Harold has agoraphobia. He seems to be able to talk to Donna intelligently, and he also seems to understand that he's had this condition for a long time because he has a slightly defensive attitude about it, because he asks Donna whether she has any kind of judgment on his condition, as if it's a challenge. I think that comes probably from a little bit of frustration on his behalf. Harold seems like he is very upset to have lost a friend. Obviously he won't have had many. Maybe Laura was his only friend, and he feels like he knows Donna. He says that he feels like he knows her because of what Laura has told him about her, and I think that he reaches out to Donna in the way that he is able to and sort of ask her to be his friend. There's almost a hint of desperation in his need to have Donna as a friend now that he hasn't got Laura. Basically, Cooper seems to have gone all out investigating the supernatural now. He's got the picture of Bob on the blackboard, accepting that Madeline and Mrs. Palmer have both seen this man in a vision, and Harry seems to accept the fact that Cooper has seen a giant as well. Even though Albert is being very sarcastic about Cooper's investigative measures, I think to a degree he's accepting of them as well, because otherwise he would just get up out of there and probably, you know, report to Cooper to the psychiatric unit of the FBI if he didn't think that there was some validity to Cooper's investigation. However, Albert makes it clear that he likes to focus on the physical investigation and nothing to do with the supernatural, psychic sort of side of it. He wants to investigate things that are tangible and can be understood by the wider world, I think. So, yeah, Albert is a kind of guy who likes to work in the lab, I think, and he's happy to investigate the evidence. Plus, I think that there is a sign that we might have misunderstood Albert with this scene with Harry where he insults Harry, and then Albert's response to Harry's aggression is to say that, listen, on the surface I kind of don't take any crap. So he admits to being a cynical kind of person, but he says that underneath he is all out love and peace. And he says he's a pacifist and that he has global concerns about the well-being of mankind, basically. Okay, Dick Tremaine enters the scene. I have to admit that Dick Tremaine is not one of my favourite characters. He's completely over the top, and he is one of the characters that pushes season 2 into a more slapstick kind of ridiculous humour. No, I guess it's just that his character seems to drive the comedy into a place where it doesn't sit as well with the dark aspects of the show to me. I think there are a lot of episodes later on in season 2 where Dick is involved when I think the comedy is borderline stupid. So Leland walks in, and that's quite an amusing comment when he says, "I hope I'm not interrupting." They all look at each other because they've all been talking about how tall the giant was. The scene where Leland comes into the sheriff's station becomes quite disturbing because of his memories of Bob seem rather strange, rather unlikely, but he's so convinced of it that you feel like you have to believe him. And then he talks about what Bob used to do to him, and that flicking matches and saying, you know, do you want to play with fire, menacingly. Clearly the way he talks about Bob sounds like a predator who was preying on a little boy. I should say that I really like the actor who plays Dick Tremaine, and I remember him particularly at this time when Twin Peaks was on. He was in a lot of shows that I watched as a kid, and he's been in a lot of stuff since then, and I think he's a very good actor. He's always a recognisable actor when you see his face, because, you know, he has such distinctive mannerisms and his accent, and of course he does seem like a character that you would find in Twin Peaks because he's a bit odd. So James and Madeline discuss that Donna's behaviour is notably different, and James is disturbed by this and thinks it's unlike Donna because she's trying to act sort of tough and sexy. And he discusses that he's thinking about, you know, escaping on his motorbike, just sort of running away because of the pressure he feels, having to deal with everybody else's emotional response to Laura's death. And we get another kind of hysterical reaction from Donna when she sees Madeline holding hands with James, and she gets ultra jealous about it. I don't know if it's a valid reaction, because James and Madeline are clearly getting closer, but at the same time her reactions do seem a little over the top. So Blackie and Emery decide to drug Audrey up and blackmail Ben Horn, which is pretty ballsy considering their positions in relation to Ben Horn. I think perhaps Blackie has had enough, especially the way she was treated by Jerry recently. So Shelley is questioned by the sheriff, and because of the fact that her and Bobby have decided they want to make money off Leo's disabilities, she won't say anything against him to incriminate him for the mill fire. And Cooper understands this immediately and decides that he doesn't want to waste any time on someone like that, but he thinks that Shelley is not bright enough to have thought of the plan for Leo, or is too pure to have done that. You know, we cut to Philip Gerard in the toilets, and seems to be having some kind of fit, in which he emerges from this looking a little hypnotized almost, and he addresses Bob as if Bob is in the air somewhere. Bob is kind of a spirit hanging around, and he says that he is after Bob. So it seems to be a situation that this is Bob's adversary. Ben Horn still doesn't seem overly concerned about Audrey, because he says that she's been missing before, and she always turns up, and it's something she kind of does to seek attention. And when Cooper talks to Ben, I don't know if it's implied that Ben thinks that Cooper is just concerned because Cooper fancies Audrey, but he's rather disparaging about it. Jean Reno, I thought he was, you know, when I was a kid I thought he was a very scary villain. He comes across as a villain like in a thriller movie. He seems like a very powerful man. Jean Reno says he wants to get revenge on Cooper for killing Jacques. Quite why they would rely on Emery, I don't know, because he does seem like a bit of a fool. All this stuff about my sister, this is my sister, and she's all over him, is a bit disturbing. A little bit disturbing, very disturbing I should say. So Cooper suddenly seems to remember that in his dream the one-armed man knew Bob, and they rush to the toilets to find him, and they find a syringe, and Cooper realizes that what he has found relates to the Giant's third clue, and that the one-armed man is someone who is very important to the investigation. Okay, so we see Nadine and her super strength. It's explained that Nadine has abnormally high levels of adrenaline. I don't know if that's an actual medical possibility, but clearly the adrenaline is what's giving her kind of super strength. And Ed is in the hospital supporting Nadine. I don't know, at this stage you wonder what kind of love he has for Nadine. Is it like that of a husband and wife? Is it like that of a brother and sister? Or does he have more of a, you know, a parental role with Nadine because of her behaviours? It's hard to tell, but he seems to be very much concerned about her. So we see Dr. Jacoby, and he's in his hospital bed, which he's transformed into his own haven, and he explains that this lady who's massaging his feet is his wife. And clearly he is a man who he dances to a different drum, basically. You know, he reminds me of like a 1960s crusader kind of a merry prankster. You know, he's very open to all kinds of lifestyles and behaviours. It's kind of interesting actually that we see so many people in Twin Peaks who have their own philosophies on life and their own rituals to get them into a psychological place where they need to be. And Dr. Jacoby is just one of these people who is using this kind of crystal ceremony and hypnosis. And Dr. Jacoby seems very much like he has lived around the world perhaps and been involved in many different cultures. When you get to know a little bit more about this history he has, his lifestyle perhaps, he still seems a little bit weird and a little bit of a sleazy guy, but I think that you can't deny that his experiences in life probably have taught him a lot about human behaviour, and that being a psychiatrist is probably the perfect job for him. Donna talking to Laura at Laura's grave is quite interesting because she confesses her vulnerabilities, and she also seems like she's a little bit angry at Laura because of Laura's behaviour. I think that what we've seen from Donna's behaviour over the past couple of episodes really comes to a head when she's talking to Laura at the graveside, and she gets really mad at Laura, and you know, she talks about Laura having strength and courage, and the fact that when she was alive Donna really wanted to be like that, which is pretty obvious, but that now she realises that it was probably not a good thing to be because of how Laura ended up dead. She is angry at Laura for taking so much energy and focus away from her own life and from James's life as well. And she also mentions Madeline. She basically says that, you know, they're consumed by Laura. The whole town is consumed by what happened to Laura and figuring it out, and nothing else seems to matter, which is sort of dismantling Donna's personal power. Okay, and we get this inevitable sort of embrace and kiss with Madeline and James, which I think, you know, you can see that James is looking for sort of comfort, something that he hasn't been able to find in Donna in the past couple of episodes because of her behaviour, because of her kind of manic hysteria. And then we get this interesting piece from Madeline. She says that when she arrived in Twin Peaks it was almost as if she'd fallen into a dream, which is an interesting way to think about things, and that a lot of people in the town think that she is Laura, but that she is vastly different from Laura. And I think that she is talking about James, and she realises that James really is interested in her because James loved Laura. So we see Leland comforting Madeline, and we get the contrast of Leland being fatherly to Madeline and Sheriff Truman and Cooper walking in and arresting him for the murder of Jacques Reno. And it's like jolting. It makes you suddenly remember what Leland did, even though, you know, he seems like such a broken man because of what's happened to his family, that almost you don't want him to be arrested for Jacques' murder. So Donna is kind of engaging in the same behaviour as Laura did by coming to Harold and telling her secrets, telling her stories about her love life and her relationships, letting Harold hear about something that he probably hasn't experienced in a long time and probably won't again. At this stage, you know, I don't know how old Harold is, but the kind of sweetness between him and Donna, I would have actually have bought this as a romance if they'd have gone down that line, because I think they seem suited to one another. And then the episode ends with Donna finding Laura's diary. Okay, so I thought that was an okay episode. We have, you know, the introduction of Dick Tremaine and Harold as well. I think that Harold is the more interesting character. I said what I said about Dick not being my favourite character, but he does have his funny moments. But I find him a little bit irritating, to be honest. What I liked about this episode was actually the James, Donna and Madeline's situation. I think James is an interesting character. Okay, when he talks about, you know, his inner needs, the kind of obstacles that he is facing in his life. James is an easy rider. He wants to get on that motorbike and be free of constraints and the things that emotionally tie him down. I think, you know, James and Donna are obviously the most important characters in that triangle, but I also think it's nice to hear Madeline's side. But she almost seems like a reflection of Laura still, despite the fact that she's her own person. She still is like an echo, if you like, of the real thing. It's very strange. You know, she's almost adopting Leland as her father now, and she has taken Laura's best friends. She has started to change her appearance to be more in line with like Laura, in terms of she's more sexualized. I like that, you know, we got a little more about the supernatural side of the investigation into Laura's death, and that we see Cooper and Albert and Harry working out the clues that, you know, the giant gave Cooper, finding out there is more mysterious threads to this investigation, such as, you know, Bob's origin and the one-armed man's relationship with Bob, which is clearly very important given that we saw him speaking to Bob and he's sort of warned off Bob. So that's a very tantalizing storyline, I think. So yeah, that's it for today. The way I'm going to be watching this season 2 is I'm going to watch it up to episode 14 in the whole series. That's in 4 episodes time, I think. And then I'm going to watch the movie Fire Walk With Me, and I'm going to kind of try and deconstruct some of the content of the movie. I saw something online a while back ago that said that a good way to rewatch the series is to get to episode 14 where Laura's killer is revealed, and then watch the movie, which acts like a flashback scenario, and it sort of ties in everything before we move on to a new storyline in season 2 with the Wyndham Earl, etc. So that's what I'm going to be doing. If you want to join me for the rewatches of the next few episodes and the movie, you're welcome to do that. You can subscribe to my channel if you like, and you can also follow me on Twitter at TheLogSadie. And you can comment below if you have anything to say about this episode in particular. So that's all for now, and I'll see you later. Bye!